Hey guys, Altovise Pelzer here, your voice manager, host of the hashtag Speak Easy podcast. And I'm super excited about coming to you with this episode. I'm going to tell you why. Yes, I have degrees. Yes, I have training under my belt that is professional training as well as street cred, right? Let's just put it out there when we think about the entrepreneurial uh, journey. A lot of times we get some street cred, we get some bumps and bruises that kind of add to the experience in our journey. But I think one of the things that we really have is not just our experience and the education that we gather, but also it's the execution. And I think there's this gap that many people are missing from the information and the execution. And so that's why I'm super excited about my guest that I have coming on today. Hello, Dr. David. How are you?
Altovise, how are you today?
I am doing so amazing. I Okay, so I can be very honest, and Speak Easy podcast listeners, you know I'm very transparent. I am someone who is a college dropout. I recently went back to finish going for my degree, and it wasn't just to have the title and the letters behind my name, but it was because I saw what it could do for me and my clients further down the line. And I got a lot of backlash for it, so much. And so I know that'll be part of our discussion for today. But Dr. David, I want you to let the studio audience know a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go ahead and dive into this topic about education versus experience.
Yes, and I'm glad to be on with you today with your audience. So, my name is Dr. David Walker. I am born in Philadelphia, PA, which we have that in common. But I was raised in New York City, and I am a former educator. I worked 30 years for the New York City Department of Education as a school administrator. Um, I am a former pastor, and I have other talents that I guess we'll share a little later in the show. But I'm just really a love of God, a born again believer, and I'm just really excited to be here today.
I am definitely excited to have you as well. So for me, the education journey was not the traditional education journey. I came out of high school, I went to college, I stopped working, and all heck broke loose, right? Working two and three jobs, had kids, got married, went back to school, finished with my first degree, my associate's degree. Uh, Decided that I was going to go and get my bachelor's, and all heck happened, and went through a divorce, went through all these other things. And man, when we think about the education journey, I think that's still one of the things that we kind of leave out is that life does not stop happening.
Correct.
It does not stop happening. And so from you and thinking about education in a couple different realms, because we have to think about it in the spiritual realm as well, because there's times where we go and we're going and finding out information, and we're in our word daily, and we're going to Bible study and service. And listen, I was one of those kids. I don't know about you, Dr. David, but I spent quite a few days of the week in church.
Absolutely.
Quite a few days of the week in church. But speak to that life circumstance that kind of comes up and derails what you thought should have been a kind of clear path to getting a better education in any of those realms.
Well, first of all, I'm glad to hear that you went back to school and that you earned your degree. I have always been under the philosophy, especially when you're trying to be employed and employers require a degree. I've always said it doesn't matter how long it took for you to get it, just as long as you get it, because they never ask you, well, how many years did it take for you to get your degree? All they want to know is, do you have it? So I do want to encourage everyone who is trying to seek, especially an advanced degree at the college level, keep on, keep going, keep pursuing until you get it. And realistically, no one's going to ask you how long it took. Now, for me, education has really been a part of my life journey. As a matter of fact, up until last year, last September was the first time in 54 consecutive years that I did not begin the month of September in an education and academic environment. I started school at 1965 was my first time in an education environment as a kindergartner. And for the next 54 years, either as a student, an educator, in some fashion, I began September in an education and academic environment. And this past September was the very first time I finished all my degrees and I finished my journey. So, but for me, education has been tremendous. I grew up in a community called Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, New York. And it was a community that I've often say was not a whole lot of inspiration or aspiration. There was I always say that, on one corner you could see drug deals and gang violence. And then on another corner, you could see, empty vacant lots and empty buildings. So it was not a lot of inspiration. And then when it comes to education, my parents, they loved my siblings and I. They provided for us, gave us food, clothes on our backs, a roof over our head, but they never talked about education. My dad was a high school dropout. He dropped out in the 10th grade. My mother, fortunately, she did earn her high school diploma, but they never talked about education. My mom, I don't have the story of my mom sweeping floors, mopping floors, cleaning up houses for people just so I could go to college. And the school that I went to, they didn't talk a lot about going past high school and getting a college education. But fortunately, I was an athlete, and through my athletics, that got me into college. And once I got there, I began to fall in love with education. I found that education, it was stimulating my mind. It was creating a new world for me that I had never experienced. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with educating my mind because I understood that once I educated my mind, then the world belonged to me. There's nothing that I couldn't do. There's nothing that I could not accomplish. And everything in life, I knew I could receive it through an educated mind. So, of course, I graduated high school. I went on to college. Thank the Lord, I graduated college, earned a bachelor's degree, became a teacher. And of course, when you're in education, you got to go back to school. I went back for a master's degree, which I earned. And then I continued on because I became an administrator. So I had to go back and get a second master's degree to become a principal. Then as I mentioned earlier, I was a pastor. And as a pastor, I felt that I still wanted to further my education. So I went to seminary. And I've got a Master of Divinity degree. And then finally, I culminated my education journey with a doctorate degree from Northeastern University. So for me, that's David Walker speaking. Education meant everything. But I want to be clear at this point to make it that education does not always mean a college degree, a college education. There are various ways to educate your mind. For example, if you're becoming an entrepreneur, you're going into business, you may not have a college degree, but you're still going to have to go and learn. You have to learn business skills and business ethics and business strategies. Well, that's education. If you're an artist or a singer, whatever it is that you do, you're still going to have to educate your mind in some aspect, in some way. So don't look at it as though, well, I didn't go to college, and so I'm not an educated person. Absolutely not. You have to find what is right for you. For me, it was being in that classroom and learning, sitting in front of a teacher, being taught. That what was for me. But I've discovered that that's not for everyone. Some people are going to achieve great success through other means that may not include a college degree, but it still will include education in some form or fashion. So that's my journey. I hope those words were encouraging to someone, that yes, there is your traditional education, your formalized education, but education comes in many ways, and whatever way works best for you, go get it.
I love that you said that. Uh, and Speakeasy podcast listeners, I hope you were really paying attention when he said, he described where he started, where he came from, because a lot of times that's the driving force for why we think we can't.
Right.
We think that where we started from, we can't move past where that was. Where we started from, we are unable to go and make some things happen. And I think for me, I look at my mother and I look at her journey, and I think about, the fact that she was pregnant when she was 18. So she had to stop. She had to drop out of high school. She went back and got her GED, and then was able to get not one, not two, but 3 degrees.
Wow.
After that. And, it speaks to a tenacity. It speaks to a purpose and a passion too, because it wasn't until I got into my adult years that I can think back and look at that and say, wow, she did all those things because it fed into her entrepreneurship that she was doing. Mm-hmm. And even though at one point she did have to go back to work, and because of illness, she couldn't do her passion anymore. It really did open my eyes to some things. I said, wow, she wanted to sew. That was her thing, sewing and modeling. And she got to do that. She went and got her business degree. She went and got an accounting degree, and she went and got a degree from Tracy Warner. And it all sewed into her building, where her and 2 of her good girlfriends opened up their own fabric store in Philadelphia. And it was called Fabric to Fashion. And I think about it now, because I was little when it was open. I think about it now and I'm like, wow, in the 80s, this is what she was able to do. And I know that some of us, right now may be looking around and saying, but look at what we're going through right now. And even with what you're going through right now, there's something that you have, there's something you can learn, and there's something you can do.
Absolutely. I want to celebrate your mother. As you said, maybe her beginnings were not the greatest, but she persevered. She persisted. She made up in her mind, this is what I want to do, regardless of where I came from, regardless of my background. Where I am now is a great starting point, a great place to begin. Even though it didn't happen yesterday, I can still start it today. And as I said earlier, you talked about her getting her education in accounting and other business related courses, and which she achieved. And so what that shows, again, how you hit that education and then focusing on what you need to learn in order to advance yourself and advance, where you are in life.
So key. Now, and I have to ask this question, because you talked about this long history of going to school, taking classes in many different arenas. In that journey, has there been any moments where you were like, okay, maybe this is not something I want to continue to do, or has something happened that really kind of jolted you and almost made you quit that journey that you were on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, actually, I would say the most impactful time would be really when I first started, because coming from the background that I came from, I was really not well prepared for college. I oftentimes tell this story that, most high school kids, when they're preparing for college, they'll take what you call an SAT. And the SAT helps a high school student. It identifies their academic level. They'll submit the results of the SAT to various colleges, trying to get, top scores so they can get into top schools. And I tell the story that the only SAT that I was familiar with coming out of high school was the day before, which was FRI. that was the only SAT that I knew about, that it came after FRI. So, when I started that journey, not really being prepared, I had to take a lot of remedial courses, and then taking subject matters that it was foreign to me and didn't understand. And yes, there were many days when I was getting ready to check out. Now, fortunately, because of my athletics, that was like an encouragement. But I was on, a lot of people, when they get into college, there's this thing called the dean's list. And but when I was in college, the first 2 or 3 years, the dean's list meant that the dean wanted to see you. And if you didn't get your academics together, they was going to kick you out of school. So that was the only dean's list that I knew. But eventually, I said to myself, no, this is your way out. This is your way out of the neighborhood. This is your way to making a difference in the life of you and your family. And you have to stick with it. And anything worth having, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you time. It's going to cost you energy. It's going to cost you pain. There's going to be a lot of pain in order to succeed and to achieve. You ask any mother who's had children, of course, to have one of the greatest things she could ever have in life, she can't have it without pain. And so that goes for everything in life worth having. There's going to be some pain. So my academic journey came with a lot of pain, but I kept pushing. I made it in my mind I wasn't going to quit, although I wanted to. But at some point, I made up my mind that I wasn't going to quit. And this is the last thing I'm going to say. Anything that you've ever done in your life was because you made up your mind to do it.
Now, I want to definitely pivot it a little bit, because I know that you took it even a step further when you became a former New York City school administrator. I know that, a lot of times when we have gone through something in our past, it becomes the heart for us to step into another realm. What made you step into that particular position? And what was your greatest moment while being in that position?
It's interesting that you asked, what was it that caused me to step in that position? To be honest, I remember that when I was going for my second master's, they said, well, you could do it in any subject matter. You could get 30 credits and it would allow you to be at what they call a top tier salary for a teacher. You could make top teacher salary if you got 30 credits above your master's degree. But then I saw that if you did 30 credits in school administration, you could get a degree as an administrator. Well, at that time, I wasn't even thinking about being an administrator. But if I do 30 credits in anything, and then the highest level of success I would receive was to be a teacher. But if I did 30 credits in this curriculum of school administration, then one day, if I decide I want to be an administrator, at least I have the credentials. So fast forward, maybe about 5 or 6 years later, after I got the administrative degree, one school administrator in our school retired. and the principal wanted someone in the building to fill her position. So he came to our department, and there were about 15 of us in the department, and he says, do any of you have an administration degree? Because I need to replace the retiring administrator, and I want you to have the position. Well, out of 15 people in that department, I was the only one with an administrative degree. And I raised my hand and said, I have one. The principal gave me the job. The people that I had been working with for about 15 years, well, maybe about 10, 12 years, they said to me, and I remember they were my colleagues. We worked together. They looked at me after I got the job and they said, Walker, you lucky. And I said, it wasn't luck. I said, what I needed for that moment was in my back pocket. And which is obviously when I say that, I'm talking about the degree. There's a quote, if I can remember it, it talks about how luck is preparation equals preparation and opportunity. So I was prepared for an opportunity, didn't know that it was coming, but because I had prepared for it previously, when the opportunity came, I was able to get the job. So that's the truth of how I got the job. They said it was luck, but I say luck equals opportunity plus preparation.
Ooh, okay, we got to unpack that really quickly, because Speakeasy listeners, I hope that you really caught the core and the root of what he was saying, because even what you do today is sowing the seed for the harvest that you will have further down the line.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
And so for some of you, you're like, oh, it's just a class. It's not just a class. It's not just a certificate. It's not just that. Even if no one ever sees that certificate, guess what? You are planting a seed for the harvest that you will have further down the line. Mm. That was so valuable. So valuable. Because we, as entrepreneurs in this journey, a lot of times we're always, it's that shiny object syndrome, right? So we kind of grab everything and we're not really deliberate. And so what you heard him say was that he deliberately took this course and it paid off for him years later. That also means that we're not always going to get instant gratification.
That's right.
Oh my goodness, that was so valuable. We will not always get instant gratification. There will be times where we have to go and spend some time with that thing in our back pocket or in our bag or in our heart or listen, some of y'all are holding on to the wrong things. And it might be some time to make space.
That's right.
Ooh. That just gave me chills. Oh, I absolutely love it. Now, what was your most memorable moment in that position? Because I know sometimes we get into some positions and we're like, oh, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
Well, being in education and working in a school environment, I think the greatest joy you'll ever have is impacting the lives of young people. Young people, of course, primarily high school age kids, sometimes even young and sometimes even older, they're always looking for people to care. Realistically, they don't really deep down want you to do anything or give them anything. They just want to know that you care. And I have found that young people will work hard for themselves when they know that someone cares for them. It's when they see you as inauthentic, you're not genuine. What will some of the kids say? You're not 100. How the kids may have their expressions today. You know what I'm saying? But they can tell. They can see right through you. And I've always said when they know that you are real and that you care and you have compassion for their situation, what they're going through, I've used this term before, they'll eat out of your hands. But basically, that's just saying that they will listen to you, they will respect you, they will honor you. But it's on you as an adult or as a leader to make the first step, because they're not going to come to you on their own. I know sometimes as adults or parents, we expect children or younger people to move towards us first. That's not my thinking. I think we should move towards them first. That makes the difference in my mind.
I love that. I love that. And so as we're starting to wrap up, I want you to give them, the studio audience, what is the second principle of the king mentality, the second principle of it?
Wow. Thank you for asking. Well, the second principle is to be fearless. What Altovise is asking me about, the book that I wrote, and it's coming out very soon, probably first part of March. It's called The King Mentality: 7 Guiding Principles to Defeating Giants and Win at Everything Else. And I wrote this book based on the life of the little shepherd boy, David, who we all know slayed the giant. Everyone has heard of the David and Goliath story. And but most people know that David slayed Goliath, he killed Goliath, but not a lot of people know that David won at everything that he did. So David possessed what I have labeled as the king mentality. And so that second principle is that you have to be fearless. You have to be brave, because that's what David was. He was brave. He wouldn't allow obstacles to get in his way. You mentioned that earlier. I think about your moms and maybe other people, that I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to be brave. I'm not going to be fearful. A lot of people are afraid. And here's what I've discovered about fear. You cannot avoid fear. If you want to be successful, success will not happen without feelings of fear, emotions of fear, being afraid as to what might happen. Will I be successful? Can I do it? All of that is a part of success. But when you are fearless, that means although the fear is there, I'm going to push past it. I'm going to step over it. I'm going to step around it. I'm going to go through it in order to achieve my goal in life. If you want anything in life, it's not going to happen without fear. But the second principle of the king mentality is be fearless.
Speak Easy podcast listeners, you heard it. Be fearless. I'm super excited that we were able to have Dr. David on and to have this discussion now more than ever, because the things that we discussed are things that are going to help you not only to prosper right now, but again, you're sowing those seeds for the future harvest that you not only want, but the future harvest that will feed your children and your children's children, the future harvest that will feed others in the community, as well as those that will sustain, okay, in the middle of the drought, in the middle of the famine, right? So we absolutely love that you were able to come on today, Dr. David. Let them know how they can reach out to you for more information and also where they can find you at online.
Yes, you can connect with me on social media. All of my social media sites are Dr. David M. Walker. That's Dr. David M. Walker, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm consistent all the way across as Dr. David M. Walker. You could, my website is drdavidmwalker.com, drdavidmwalker.com. That's my speaking website. And we have a podcast that love for you to download on iTunes. It's Beyond the Culture podcast, Beyond the Culture with Dr. David M. Walker. As I said, you can get it on iTunes, or you can even go to my YouTube channel and watch some of the interviews. Again, Dr. David M. Walker on YouTube. So that's how you can connect with me.
Speak Easy Podcast listeners, this was another amazing episode. Make sure that you not only listen and take note, but take action. We want to know how this episode resonated with you, so you can leave us a review at your favorite podcasting platform. Or you can come join the conversation, bit.ly/World Voice Community. Come join the World Voice League community over on Facebook, so that way you can let us know how this episode resonated with you. Guys, you know we do it all for you, because without the Speak Easy Podcast listeners, there is no Speak Easy Podcast. We appreciate you spending this time with us. And guess what? It's your host, Altovise. And until next time, don't forget to press it out. See ya.